We have a breaking news bombshell. Donald Trump isn't even inaugurated yet, and he just suffered his first major public defeat and humiliation because Matt Gaetz, Trump's nominee to be Attorney General of the United States, just publicly withdrew his own name and candidacy from the office, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. Well, folks, this is very interesting. We all suspected that Donald Trump would not withdraw his nominee for the Attorney General, that he would not back away from Matt Gaetz. As a matter of fact, the reporting was that he was doubling down and he was directly phoning Republican senators to insist that they back his nominee for Attorney General, that they double down on Matt Gaetz. But Matt Gaetz actually just withdrew from the race. So he posted on Twitter, "I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. There's no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one. I remain fully committed to see that Donald J. Trump is the most successful president in history. I will be forever honored that Donald Trump nominated me to lead the Department of Justice, and I'm certain that he will save America." So again, this comes on the heels of one scandal after another. As you know, Matt Gaetz was until recently a member of the United States House of Representatives, where he represented a district in Florida. And then he abruptly resigned from Congress, even though he just won re-election, the same day that Trump nominated him to be Attorney General. Now, his excuse at the time was, well, I really want to give Speaker Mike Johnson and Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida time to appoint my successor so that razor-thin Republican majority maintains. But then it quickly became apparent that the real reason was that Matt Gaetz was trying to head off a very controversial, long-standing ethics investigation into claims that he engaged in sexual misconduct. An investigation by the Republican-led bipartisan House Ethics Committee, which has been going on for 3 years. As a matter of fact, this investigation is purportedly the source of tension between Matt Gaetz and former Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy. We talked about that in previous videos, that that's McCarthy's stance in the situation at the very least. Well, just days before the House Ethics Committee was set to vote on whether to release the report, Matt Gaetz resigned from Congress. Now, on paper, that kills the investigation because they no longer have any jurisdiction over a former member of Congress. So it's pretty clear that Gaetz did this not to really help the Republican majority, because he screwed over the Republican majority in the past when he torpedoed Kevin McCarthy's speakership. It was in the hopes that this report would not see the light of day. And as we've discussed in previous videos, Mike Johnson and other Republicans are doing their best to prevent that report from ever making it not only to the eyes of the American public, but also even to the Republican-led Senate Judiciary Committee, which would be responsible for venting Matt Gaetz if he, continued to be Donald Trump's nominee for Attorney General. They were trying to hide it from the American people and their own fellow Republicans. That's how salacious this report must be. And so now, despite the fact that Trump and Gaetz were meeting with senators, calling senators, putting the squeeze on senators, Matt Gaetz is like, the momentum was strong, but honestly, this is going to be too distracting, so I'm withdrawing my own name. Now, for Trump, this is actually probably the best case scenario politically, because if Trump withdrew Gaetz's name, that would be even more of a public defeat and humiliation, because it would be Trump's decision. Okay, wait a minute. You proffered this name that apparently you can't even get past your own cultish Republican Party, which will control the Senate. And so now you have to sheepishly okay, fine, I take it back. To an authoritarian, malignant narcissist like Donald Trump, that's the sort of humiliation that he wants to avoid. And again, he's not even inaugurated yet. So even though he was doubling down on Gaetz, if Gaetz's nomination were to be withdrawn and avoid the even more embarrassing outcomes, it would have had to have been from Gaetz himself. But quite candidly, I'm surprised that Gaetz did this for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's a pretty vain guy himself. He's vainglorious. He wants to be in front of the cameras. He wants attention. This is a guy who he's was a practicing attorney, and then he pivoted to Florida politics and then U.S. politics. This is a guy who wants the spotlight, much like his former colleague, Nancy Mace. Well, now he's no longer a member of the Republican House of Representatives. So where's he going to go to get that attention, right? He's not going to have the bully pulpit of a congressional seat behind him. He's not going to be the vice chair or the ranking member of, something of a Republican-led oversight committee or weaponization committee, right, where the spotlight is on him and he goes viral. He has no government power now. Now, of course, the alternative is that Trump nominates him for a different position, which doesn't require Senate confirmation. The Attorney General of the United States is a cabinet level position, and most cabinet level positions, but not all, require Senate confirmation. So that was the potential hurdle. Chief of Staff is the most powerful position in the entire White House. I would argue much more powerful even than cabinet employees, and it doesn't require Senate confirmation. But unfortunately for Gaetz, Susie Wiles, who helped lead Donald Trump's campaign, was already tapped to be his White House Chief of Staff. But also, Gaetz might just be biding his time because White House Chiefs of Staff under Donald Trump had a very high turnover rate. So it's possible that Trump gets very tired of Susie Wiles' more controlled, establishment approach, because she is reportedly the thing that kept Trump on message to the extent that he was on message at all or disciplined at all. Susie Wiles was the adult in the room. So it's possible that Trump gets tired of that and wants to appoint Matt Gaetz to an even more powerful role, arguably, than Attorney General, which doesn't require Senate confirmation. So I wouldn't rule out the prospect that Matt Gaetz eventually becomes White House Chief of Staff, effectively the second most powerful person in the federal government. But again, it could be a different role altogether. There are also rumors that Matt Gaetz might run to be governor of Florida. I'm pretty sure Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is term locked, and he just began his second term. He won a second term after then trying to run for president in the 2023-2024 Republican primary. So it could just be that Gaetz is biding his time. Maybe he'll get a sweet gig on Fox News or Newsmax or OAN or Steve Bannon's War Room podcast. Perhaps he'll start one of his own. I have no doubt that this man will be in the Trump orbit, and he will be looking for a more established position, perhaps in the Trump White House, as the Trump term goes through. So I doubt we have heard the last of Matt Gaetz. But this is big. He withdrew his own name, his own candidacy, in which is perhaps the least embarrassing of the all embarrassing options. This is still bad. This is still a defeat and a humiliation for Trump because he doesn't get what he wanted. He wanted Matt Gaetz to be his hatchet man, his attorney general. I should also say that this follows the heels of reports when Matt Gaetz met with Republican senators that he tried to discourage them that he's not going to actually prosecute the enemy within or go after Trump's political opponents, even though he has shown great interest in doing that in the past. And Trump himself has expressed interest repeatedly, 4 years explicitly, in prosecuting his political opponents. But even that apparently wasn't enough to dissuade them. Matt Gaetz is trying to reassure senators anxious about the prospect of him becoming attorney general by telling them he won't use the Justice Department to immediately seek revenge on Donald Trump's enemies, according to a report. The former Florida congressman, who requires Senate approval to join Trump's cabinet, has been making his case to senators in one-on-one meetings. Quote, "Look, I'm not going to go in there and indict Liz Cheney, have stormtroopers bust through the studio door at MSNBC, and arrest Anthony Fauci in my first week," he told some senators, according to the Bulwark. The reference to refraining from seeking retribution only in his first week as attorney general was interpreted as an ominous disclaimer by some, according to the report. So again, those senators noted, okay, are you saying that you're not going to do that at all? Or specifically, you're not going to do that in your first week? So even these things didn't really assuage concerns by Republican senators. And that probably led to the decision that he made just a few minutes ago to withdraw his name. So this is a major development, a major setback for Donald Trump. But again, Gaetz is slimy, Gaetz is cunning, and Gaetz loves the attention and the spotlight. And we will see and hear from him again, probably in the short term in media. But I expect he'll either make a gubernatorial bid towards the end of Governor Ron DeSantis's second term, or perhaps he will seek a non-Senate confirmable position in the Trump White House. Food for thought. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.